Well, it's kind of apropos for one of England's biggest stars to bring us in. That's Peter Gabriel.
Is that an omen?
Hope so. We'll see. Welcome aboard today's edition of the Postgame Show. He's Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. And a lot to get to on today's program. I say apropos because England and the Netherlands kicking off in the Euros. I'm wearing my Michael Owen throwback jersey. I am pulling hard for England today. So if you hear me go, oh, ah, or yeah, or something like that throughout the course of the program, you'll likely know why. I do have it on in front of me, but it is...
Yeah, they just started.
It's on mute. It's on mute. So
as all of our TVs are here.
Yeah, sadly.
Can't have.
I wonder if it'd be fun to have it on, and be listening. I don't know who's calling today's game. I'm assuming Ian Dark and Landon Donovan are calling this game, but I don't know. But anyway, have that going for you. Talk some Carolina baseball at the bottom of this hour. Our good friend Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central been following the latest from Paul Maneri, Terry Rooney, and Monty Lee and others. John Hendry, the new assistant coaching staff under Coach Maneri, but they have been adding a lot of guys in the portal. Saw some transfers out. That's to be expected. No, the guys that transferred out are looking for more playing time, and the guys they're bringing in are trying to step it up a level. Got a nice addition from Texas A&M. Got some guys from Campbell, Winthrop. So all guys that want to, again, try to bring it up a notch. So we'll talk with Jack about that. And, again, the portal is closed. Now, there are still guys that are available from the portal, but you had to put your name in by last Tuesday, I believe it was, July 2. So portal closed, but available players. Draft is this weekend. So there are guys that will have some decisions to make. Again, baseball does it right, in my opinion. You can get drafted out of high school. Don't like your offer, you can choose to go to college. You can get drafted once you're eligible again in college. Don't like your offer, you can go back into college. I think that the NBA and NFL could learn from that.
Providing kids with options, that sounds cool.
Well, but hey, that's too that's kind of dumb when you think about it. Why have options in a free country? We shouldn't.
Oh, they're just 17, 18. They haven't earned the right to have options yet. You got to make some dumb ones first, kids, with the limited options you have.
Yeah, and that gets us into the Cooper Flagg story again. I bristle when I hear people. Even this week, I've seen. I can't believe he's going to have to go to college. Why, after all these years, do people not get it? It's not an NCAA thing. There is no way on God's green earth to force any human being to go to college. You can't force them to go to college. The NBA, however, has the rule that says you can't enter our league until you're a year out of high school.
Thanks, David Stern.
It's a bad rule, man. And once again, I don't know, like Bronny James and Cooper Flagg could in some ways, in my opinion, do for the G League what Caitlin Clark is doing for the WNBA and Angel Reese and Aaliyah Boston and Asia Wilson. Now, I realize it's different because WNBA is the major league.
Yeah.
And the G League is the minor league. I get it. But do people even really know what the G League is? The answer is no. The point I'm making, Elijah, is go ahead and draft them. Again, it's been working for generations for baseball and hockey. Generations. Mm-hmm. It's not a novel concept. The minor leagues work. You don't have to watch. You don't have to like it. You don't have to go. I got pushback from one of our colleagues a few years ago about an NFL developmental. Who's going to watch that? Who cares?
It's not for the purpose of generating revenue.
I don't care if you watch it. But all those games will be on the NFL Network, I promise. And that whatever, don't they have NFL Plus?
They do.
Everybody has a plus these days.
No one has a minus, and I find that to be a little disappointing. Like, what if I want to watch less of something? I pay to watch less of something.
But anyway, we'll talk to Jack about what guys have the potential to be drafted, but maybe not super high, and could potentially come back. I know a lot of Gamecock fans are hoping that Cole Messina would take 1 year of eligibility and come back to South Carolina, but as one of the 3 or 4 best hitting catchers in college baseball. Despite where you may see him in some mock drafts, I think that, in my opinion, and what I've read about him and talked with a few people, he may still go wherever he's projected, within 5 spots up or down or something like that. But the money may be a little better for him. So they can go ahead and get him into a professional system, start using that wooden bat, and let's see what you can really do as a hitter. And maybe he even moves positions because he's played some first, some third. He's got some versatility. Who knows? But
catcher in Major League Baseball now is not what it used to.
No.
If you're a good enough hitter, they're going to try to preserve you.
I agree. But then again, you look at the Braves, man. I mean, are Travis d'Arnaud and Sean Murphy known first as catchers or as hitters?
Hitters.
Yeah. So
how many teams now are using their really good catchers? Kansas City with Salvador Perez. Salvador Perez has played first and DH'd more than he's caught.
Yeah. He's also going to like his 8th All-Star game.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Yeah.
Fantasy baseball cheat code. Every year, man.
But we'll get into those things with Jack coming up in just a little bit. Big 12 media days continue. Dion has had a chance. We'll get into some of the things around the Big 12, more from what Brett Yormark has said. There's all kinds of stuff, and we had a little bit of it yesterday on the show about, once again, look, the conference expansion realignment story isn't going to go away unless all of the conferences get together away from the auspices of the NCAA and sign an agreement that basically is a moratorium. There will be no further conference movement until July of 2030. And nobody's going to sign that. So it's always going to swirl around. But people are trying to take some things that Brett Yormark said yesterday. He's the commissioner of the Big 12. And parse it into saying once their media days are over, there's going to be an announcement that they're bringing in more schools. I don't know why any of these conferences would announce a further expansion today. At least the 3 Big 10, Big 12, SEC that are all bringing in. And the ACC is too. I need to stop that. So is the ACC. They're bringing in 3 new schools. Mm-hmm. Just stop for now, but that hasn't stopped people from speculating. So we'll try to touch on some of that as best we can. I know there's a big thing going around the interwebs today because a dude that has 100,000 followers put something out. Okay, but you told me about it. I went and looked around a little bit more. There is zero beyond a couple of tweets that this dude put out to back him up in any way, shape, or form, in any direction when it comes to potential realignment and who could be going where. So, but those things are out there for you. 4 o'clock hour, we'll get back into our Media Days previews. We're doing it a week ahead. For those of you who haven't been able to hear us this week, we're going Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just like Media Days in Dallas next week. Today, we'll look ahead to next Wednesday. Alabama, Florida, Mississippi State, and Texas are on the agenda. So Elijah and I write down our biggest question that we'd like to hear answered next week. Not so much the question around the team for the entire season, although those things can blend. But, what we might want to hear from the head coach, maybe some players next week about the particular programs. Some of them are very easy. For Billy Napier, I know the cynics out there. Hey, Billy, you like Mayflower moving? Have you gotten one of those pods in your yard yet?
He seems like a 2-man in a truck kind of guy myself.
Right, so
that's my read on him.
We'll look at some of those things for you too. With Bama, again, pretty obvious. You've got a brand new coach, but a coach who just played for the national championship and has been fantastic at every stop along the way in what has been a meteoric rise, it seems, to the top of college football. And whether you believe or not that he was Bama's first choice, I think he was either first or second. I think he made a quick call, and Dan Lanning told you no.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm Dan Lanning, I'm not taking that job.
He's got it made where he.
Yeah, he's now got a top 5 job. And it was turning into that anyway. He has furthered the cause by bringing a level of SEC recruiting and development into that league and into that program. And now he goes into another league where they almost instantly become the second best team in the conference, with all due respect to Michigan. Mm-hmm. I think for Ohio State this year is national championship or bust.
With that roster?
They are so talented. My goodness. It's almost I was going to say almost criminal. That's not what I'm going for, but you like to say comical sometimes with these kind of things, or laughable. It's like, how'd you get that many good players? But they did.
A humiliating amount of good players on one certain team.
But they'll, but Oregon comes in, and really, in my opinion, they come in as sort of a 1B.
Mm-hmm. Well, that game, they play in the regular season, and they can play that bad boy in Outson. That can decide which one of those two plays in the Big Ten, because the Oregon and Ohio State, to be the two best teams, didn't necessarily draw the best straws when it comes to who their conference opponents are this year.
Right. So we'll touch on some of those things for you coming up throughout the course of the afternoon, and see what y'all think as well. You can hit us up 803-404-6100 on the text line, the Firehouse Subs text line, and we'll get into some of those things for you too. College football playoff, or the college football playoff title odds. Got the top 5 teams and what you think where the good money is. That's Elijah's bag, not mine. But we'll touch on that for you too.
I wouldn't be surprised if one day I just get a text from Terry, said, "Hey, Jay's not working with us anymore. He cashed a large parlay and he has bought an island in the Caymans."
I assure you, sir, that won't be me. I don't gamble. Speaking of which,
you have a good poker face.
If I
You're
may,
not fooling me, buddy. You had a good poker face.
My wife just texted me about an hour ago. 1 week from today, and I hadn't seen this. I don't pay a lot of attention to what's going on in Vegas on a regular basis, I will admit. But she said she saw a Wall Street Journal article that 1 week from today, the Mirage is closing. Yeah.
Is closing?
Yeah. Listen, in Vegas, only Caesar's Palace hangs around as like, a venerable old place, right?
It's not Caesar's Hut.
But
it's a palace.
But the reason I say that is on our honeymoon, we stayed a couple of days at the Mirage. And that's the sports book where I went and made my only legitimate sport. And I say legitimate sports bet. I don't mean like I go around to Vinny the Shark. The only other time I've bet officially on a sport, if you will, I think I mentioned this to you a few weeks ago, was at a dog track in Daytona when I was in college. I'm not really sure that's a sport. It was an event you could bet on.
It's a sport for the dogs.
Well, and like I say, I love telling the story that, again, I got the little book, right? Just like you get the...
Who scouts these dogs?
I don't know. Somebody did, right? Does. And I bet on what I thought was going to be a winner. And I tell you, he took turn 1, 2, and 3, and he was in the lead, brother. He was cruising. And then he hits the home stretch, and he just decided to run wide to the other side of the track.
Smelled treats somewhere.
I don't know what was over there. Yeah, he was running still. He didn't slow down and go "Oop, squirrel!" But he totally. I can still see it, man. I was like, "What are you doing?" He totally went wide.
This is coaching.
I bet. I went to the Mirage Sportsbook was awesome, by the way, but they're closing. So that's the only place. I $20 on the Golden Gophers to advance and win the Final Four that year.
You got to end on a win.
They did not.
You can't. Your only sports bet can't just be Minnesota basketball. That's degeneracy right there. I don't care if they're in the Final Four.
No, I tell you,
Minnesota basketball to win a game. That's as degenerate.
Well, they had made the Final Four, so they'd won the first 4 of the games necessary to get to the Final Four.
They did, but who else was in that Final Four?
Kentucky, Arizona, and Chapel Hill.
Yeah. Gophers.
I think they had the longest odds. That's why I did it. I was like, if I'm
Fargo too.
If I'm gonna bet,
go Gophers.
Right. If I'm gonna bet, I may as well get the best opportunity for the payoff. Right. So, speaking of payoffs, I'll switch it around a little bit. At least finances. Our sister station in Birmingham threw out a poll question today. I want to react to it, and we're going to do that before we talk to Jack Veltri. But it has to do with new revenue streams in college football. We'll discuss that and much, much more as the postgame show continues. You know, football fans, nothing beats being at the stadium. We all get that. But when you can't be there, you still can enjoy being outside and watching your big game. How? Well, you do it with our good friends at Integrated Media. Call 803-948-8327. Dave and the crew will come out to your house, look around, and install an amazing outdoor home theater system so you enjoy our beautiful fall football weather and you won't miss a minute of the action. The Samsung Terrace TV, the Sonos wireless outdoor speakers, or the in-ground speakers built to be out there 24/7, 365. You don't have to cover them up. You don't have to bring them back in, and they look and sound just like anything indoors does. Trust me on this one. They're out there year-round. Again, 803-948-8327. Indoors or outdoors, get ahead of the football rush. Call Integrated Media today. All right, welcome back into the postgame show. Breaking news, and it just came down, so I don't have a lot of detail yet, but Clemson's motion to dismiss the countersuit filed against them by the ACC has been denied. So that will move forward. So that will not be dismissed. I'll have more details on that probably in the headlines today, but if I get a little bit more, hard to dig for that right now. But that just came out just during the commercial break. Also, during the commercial break, England tied. I mean, Netherlands scored early. Penalty on the Dutch allowed England's Harry Kane with a PK, so it's 1-1 in a very big game. Winner to the final on Sunday against Spain. So, not picking at all on our sister station, but I did see this. But their midday show called Three Man Front put out a poll question today. Said the Big 12 hinted yesterday that their referees may wear commercial patches on their uniforms to help generate additional revenue. And this is where I find the question mildly problematic. It said, which potential college football advertising would annoy you the most? Helmet decal, 50 or 25-yard line sponsors, like down on the field, obviously, player uniform patches, or referee patches. Well, I responded back, and I said, none of these annoy me, and they should do all of them as soon as possible. For what it's worth, by the way, helmet decal ads, according to their audience in Birmingham, would annoy them the most. I don't know why that a sticker...
50%.
50% right now. Player patches, 26.1. On-field sponsors, 18.2. Referee patches, 5.7. Why would any of them be annoyed? I don't get it. But and one guy hits them up and says, this is just greed at this point. No, it's not. I'm sorry. And if you disagree with me, cool. I'm really okay with it. Not response directly to this poll question, but a few minutes later, I was not fuming, but I was annoyed.
Right.
Which is interesting because that's the word they used in their poll, but I was annoyed in the reverse.
It's ironic.
It is. I said there's a faction of college football fans that say potential new forms of advertising and revenue are terrible, yet most of the same people say my school better not ask me for any more money for NIL. And I said you can't have it both ways. You can't. Listen, does it go against generations, to use that word again, of so-called tradition in college football? Sure. But listen, you got to have the money come from somewhere. And there's nothing wrong with new forms of revenue. Tim Frisbee hit me, and Pops said, as long as the players don't look like NASCAR drivers. And I was like, yeah.
Get that? Yeah.
I get it. I don't want that either. But that's not going to happen. But I'm perfectly fine with a patch on each shoulder or sleeve. And I'm perfectly fine with a small helmet sticker on the back. Like, don't SEC schools now have an SEC sticker on the back of the helmet?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
A conference sticker.
Something that size. And quite honestly, take the SEC sticker off.
I think we know what conference they're in.
Hey, I get it. And it's all over the field, man. And it's all over, it's all over the scoreboard on the TV and everything else. I think we know what conference we're watching.
It ain't making them any more money.
No. And if anything, put the conference logo on the sleeve, put it on the front of the pants. I don't know. Put it on the chest next to the Nike or Adidas logo. You can find a way. A lot of logos now are right there at the collar. I'm pointing, for those of you who aren't looking on YouTube, at the point of the collar, right below your neck. Put it right there. SEC. We get it. We know who you are. But you can't have it both ways, Elijah.
Nope.
Why people would think it's just greed is beyond me. You need new forms of revenue. You don't want it all ugly and in your face. I get that.
Style is still in play.
But you can have it. You can, that in that respect, you can have both. You can have it look good and still bring you a new revenue stream.
Yeah.
So you can have it both ways there.
You can have it your way. This segment brought to you by Burger King.
There you go.
And by that, my
get a double
attitude,
Whopper.
Yeah,
Man.
look at that. Yeah, with cheese on that too. But my attitude towards this is I get the question because, yeah, the corporatization of college football has always been annoying. To me, I've always felt conference realignment was annoying. I felt like a lot of things that in college football that has been done that doesn't benefit the athletes involved, pretty annoying. However, I do at least understand that if this does not happen, like if you're the Big 12 having corporate patches or sponsorship patches on the referee uniforms isn't greed, as in Brett Yormark just wants to start swimming in cash. This is a method of survival, because the other two conferences ahead of you, the SEC and the Big Ten, are swimming in cash. They probably wouldn't even have to do something like this, but the Big 12 needs to compete. The ACC needs to consider doing this so they can compete financially, so you can keep the schools in your conference interested in staying in your conference, because your TV deal is not getting it done. The Big 12 knows their TV deal won't be able to get it done. So this is more out of survival. And now with the House versus NCAA suit, every school is going to have to spend more money on payouts, on legal payouts that they never had to use before in their histories since we've been doing the whole college sports thing. Once I've realized that and think about that and think, okay, well, it's either I get Texas Tech versus Kansas State with a couple of helmet stickers, or I don't get Kansas State and Texas Tech at all.
Right.
Or insert two schools here. Those are the first two Big 12 schools that popped in my head. Would I rather still have South Carolina and Georgia every 3 years now because they don't play every year anymore? Or would I not have it at all if I can get a field logo or a patch on the jersey? I will take having something that I'm going to forget is there, because at this point, there is precedent for this, right? Like Texas Tech has the logo of their stadium, and it says AT&T on it. They've always had that on their 25-yard lines.
Yep.
Guess what I've never cared about?
Right.
That.
Right.
NBA, I thought it was the worst thing in the world when patches were on jerseys, and I was actually annoyed by it for a little bit. You know what I don't notice anymore? The patches on the jerseys. You don't give a rat's about the patches on the jerseys.
What's on the floor at the arena? And I'm pointing that way. It says Colonial Life Arena.
That, in a way, is an advertisement that is already
Of course
on
it is.
the floor.
That's why Colonial Life Insurance, which is a mega company, spends $1 gajillion to put it on there, and has since basically the building was built.
So I get
like
the question.
2 years later, whatever it was.
So I get the question. I get it. I totally understand, because in theory, it is a little annoying. It's annoying that you ignored, I guess, antitrust law for long enough to where now you have to use every bit of financial resource you can get in income stream. But when you think about why this has to be done, I don't feel as annoyed.
Yeah. What's Carolina's baseball stadium called? Founders Park. That's a credit union.
And that logo is definitely in that building.
I mean, it might not be on the field, but you see it enough because that's what they're paying for. And that's perfectly fine. I got zero issue with it. One other thing real quick I want to say, and then we're going to talk to Jack, speaking of baseball. The highest profile players, your quarterbacks, your rush ins, whatever, those kind of guys, whoever they may be on your team, I would honestly reserve like their right or left shoulder, their choice, for whatever sponsor they may have individually. If the team has one on one side, let them have the other side. And when the close-ups are there, whether it's a local or a national company, I don't care, but they're getting that extra benefit. I would have zero problem as long as it's the same size. And again, looks good. You don't want it to like clash, right? But there's ways to do this. That may seem like, oh, that's just overkill. But hey, if that keeps, whoever happy, I was going to say like a Spencer Rattler last year, if he wanted to put the Dick Dyer logo on his shoulder, what do I care?
Mm-hmm. It's going to keep the sport alive.
I mean, because that's where we are. So,
at least help.
But I thought it was I mean, it's an interesting question, but to say which one would annoy you the most, my option would have been none of them. Do all of it and get it done by Labor Day weekend, man. You need the money. You need the money. Jack Beltry on the other side of the break. How are the Gamecocks doing in the baseball transfer portal? We'll get into that and more with Mr. Beltry of Gamecock Central when the postgame show continues. Well, a lot of us need banking services, right? Checking account, savings account, credit card, maybe a car loan or an equity line. Would you like to do that for less money out of your pocket? Then it might be time for you and your family to consider Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. My wife and I have been members for a couple of years now as a local not-for-profit financial institution. They've been serving the financial needs of the Midlands since the 1930s. And since they don't earn a profit, they return earnings back to members in the form of lower rates and fewer fees. That's right. You keep more of your hard-earned money. You're not paying the big bank that fee for, hey, I'm doing you a favor. I'm putting money in your bank. Well, at Palmetto Citizens, that money gets returned to you. Apply for any of their loans today, including terrific rates on home equity lines of credit. Visit palmettocitizens.org or stop into any of their 14 convenient Midlands locations. Palmetto Citizens, achieve your potential. And talking a little bit on potential new revenue streams in college athletics, primarily football coming up. But we did mention in that last conversation Founders Park, the sponsor being a credit union, but paying a college to put their name out there, like Colonial Life or other places that have that kind of thing. And speaking of Founders Park, we're going to talk some Carolina baseball now. See how I segued into that? You like that?
Smoothly.
Thank you. It was pretty smooth.
It was.
It could have been a little better.
I mean, it went the way you drew it up.
It did. It did. Our good friend Jack Beltry is joining us now on the guest line. Always appreciate his time. How's the summer going, sir?
It's not too bad, guys. Really appreciate you having me on. I just got back from vacation in Florida earlier this week, and it was a nice little reset, and I'm kind of getting ready for football now, but of course, baseball's still lingering, but it's always busy, isn't it?
Disney World or other?
So it was a split-off trip. So went to Disney for 3 days, I believe, last week, and then this was kind of nice. My family and I, we went to the beach afterwards in Florida, and so it was the best of both worlds, I guess you could say.
I got you. All right. Now, when you say the beach in Florida, you do realize it doesn't narrow it down much for me, Jack.
Yeah, that doesn't really help. To be a little bit more specific, Amelia Island.
Okay. All right.
Very
all right.
nice.
There you go. Yeah. Posh. Well done, sir. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's good. Did you ride Guardians of the Galaxy, Tower of Terror, any of that?
Yeah, of course. Why not? Did those. It was a really good time. Honestly, it wasn't too crowded either, which, right around July 4th, it's usually pretty packed and hot. But honestly, it was not too bad. So can't complain. The weather was warm, and, it was a really good time.
Good stuff. All right. Well, you are back at work now, and the Gamecock baseball staff has been working hard to grab talent here in the offseason. Let's start with just your overall thoughts on how they're doing, and we'll throw in a few specific names here in just a minute. But what's it felt like from your point of view, knowing the program like you do? Are there specific needs? Are they going best available? Where's the blend?
Yeah, I think the big needs, in my opinion, that they've really, honed in on this offseason have been pitching, and primarily left-handed pitching. I think that's something they didn't really have a ton of last year. Yeah, you had guys like Garrett Gainey and Matthew Becker, but, outside of that, it was kind of a lot of right-handed pitching, and you want guys that can go out there and eat up innings but also pitch well, and I think they were able to do that from not just, the transfer portal, but also the JUCO ranks with getting some big guys there. And then infield depth is another thing this team really needs. You're going to be losing a few guys this year potentially, and, obviously behind the plate with Cole Messina as well, you really need to replenish that infield and, beef it up a little bit. And I feel like they really did that. And then they've also got a few outfielders coming in. So I think this team just in general needed not an overhaul, but a little bit of a, replenishing some areas. And I think they've done that really well this offseason.
Jack, I'm going to spare you. I'm not going to ask about the New York Yankees nosedive they've taken since the beginning of the month of June. So we'll leave that one to the side. But I will ask you a Gamecock baseball question regarding maybe some of the unheralded transfer portal additions. Some of the, obviously, when you get an all Big Ten infielder, it's going to make some waves. You get someone like Mayshore in the outfield, it's going to make some news. But I think Paul Maneri and the staff have really done a good job of attacking junior college transfers, which seems like a nice throwback in terms of roster management and construction. But who are some of those JUCO guys that maybe not a lot of Gamecock fans have heard a lot of now, but you actually see having an instant impact once they come to Columbia?
So there's a few that I could go ahead and name here. The number one, I think, is probably Brandon Stone. And I believe, so he was ranked as the top JUCO pitcher according to Dream Big Athletics. And, he's a 6'6" pitcher, 220 pounds. And, last year in JUCO ball in 2024, I should say, he made 18 starts, went 14-1 with a, 3.5 ERA. And the big number that stood out to me was 113 strikeouts to only 19 walks. So when you have a guy like that really commands the zone, that's a good thing to see. And who knows if it'll translate over to being, a Friday night starter or whatever, but that's weekend potential right there. And then, from the hitting side of things that really stands out to me, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, Jace Woida from Kansas City Community College. He had really, really good numbers in 101 career games, 417 average, 23 homers, 138 RBIs. There's just a lot of look, there's going to be diamonds in the rough from time to time that you find, and I feel like South Carolina, like I said before, has done a really good job of, once again, not just going after, big-name transfer guys, but also diving into the JUCO ranks where you can really find some hidden gems, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and I love the fact that Elijah just said that it feels like a throwback, but Coach Maneri, Coach Rooney, Coach Lee are going to know that that's always been there for college baseball. We think only about the portal these days and D1 to D1 or SEC to SEC or whatever, but I think these guys know that kids like that. And Jack, I know you know this covering the sport, but a lot of kids go to JUCO out of high school because they want to see what's up, what's their draft status. They don't want to maybe pin themselves down to the 3-year commitment to a 4-year college, which is what you have to do. So I like it. But I will say that takes me to my next question for you, and that's catcher Max Kofer, who's coming over from A&M. And I loved the story that you guys had at Central on this. He's like, I didn't need to visit. My parents came down to see us play. He's from Jersey originally, and he already knew that he liked the place. Tell us more about what you're learning about him and what he can bring.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. So one of my coworkers over there wrote the story on it a few days ago, and yeah, so when Texas A&M played Carolina earlier this year, the story goes that Max Crawford, was just, wanting to check out the campus and stuff. And so he followed along on a tour group that was going across campus and stuff. And he just really enjoyed what he saw. His parents were in town when they went. So it's really interesting that kind of played out the way it did, to where he didn't need to take a real, campus tour or facility tour or anything. But that's the case for a few of these other guys that, haven't gotten a chance to go out to campus or the facilities and see it in person, but maybe they played here in the past. I know Nolan Naraki from Clemson was another guy who was like that. But, in terms of what Crawford can maybe bring to the table, I mean, look, he was backing up Jackson Appel last year at A&M, and we all know how good Jackson Appel was last year for the Aggies. But I think, don't let the numbers fool you. I know Crawford really hasn't been that great of a hitter necessarily. But, I mean, I think more importantly than that, if he's a good defensive catcher and can handle a pitching staff, I feel like that kind of outweighs everything else, considering I feel like there's going to be a lot of boppers on this lineup next year for South Carolina.
And being a Jersey kid, and I mean this in a good way, because listen, when I was in school, there's still to this day, there's plenty of Jersey kids that come down to South Carolina. He's probably got buddies that go to Carolina, or at least maybe thought about Carolina, I mean, but I don't think you do that, Jack. I don't think you go on the like shadow tour without heavy interest, right?
Yeah, it's kind of just interesting, reading it and seeing that he actually did go on just one of these random tours for high school stuff. And you're definitely right. There are definitely a lot of Northerners that go to Carolina, and I'm sure he's got some buddies or something that, are from that area in Jersey that just decided to go to South Carolina.
I just think where's his teammates are like, where's Max? He's on an admissions tour.
It's so coincidental. And again, you have to think about it. This is way before that anyone knew that Schlossnagle was going to be, leaving for Texas right after the College World Series. It's crazy coincidences. And I don't know. Sometimes fate has an interesting way of working out.
We got less than a minute here for you, so just real quick, what are the coaches doing in terms of the summer leagues? How's that going in terms of scouting, recruiting, et cetera?
Yeah, I think for the most part they have the roster, pretty much filled out to this point. I feel like they, got everything they really needed. They got some, like I said, I think they rehauled the infield pretty much very well. Pitching staff, I think, is going to be a lot sharper next year. Obviously, we'll see what happens with the draft this weekend. I feel like that's going to be, I feel like they're going to lose Cole Messina, but where's Roman Kimball going to get picked? Mm-hmm. Eli Jersenbeck's probably the biggest name to keep an eye on outside of Messina, just because we don't know what's happening with him. Obviously, these high school guys might leave as well. But I do know today they picked up a commitment from the class of 2025 with Noah Franklin, and he's an in-state kid, so he was originally committed to Duke, and he's coming to Carolina. But I do think for the most part they've got a lot of solid guys. I saw Will Tippett and Ethan Petrie both playing in the Cape Cod League, and there's definitely some other guys that are playing summer ball. But I do think, as it stands right now, they've got a good group coming in next year, and I think it's going to be a really good mix of new guys, but you're also bringing back the core of the team from last year.
Good stuff as always, man. We'll check in with you soon. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
That's Jack Veltri, Jack T. Veltri on Twitter, GamecockCentral.com. Be right back. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you on this Wednesday afternoon. Thanks again to our buddy Jack Veltri for joining us, talking a little Carolina off-season baseball. And again, the draft this weekend. So we'll check in with Jack again probably after media days once everything has settled.
Draft is going to dictate a lot.
Yeah. I think he mentioned it, Jones, Jerzenbeck, those kind of guys, what will the offers be? Sometimes guys are just ready to go regardless. Again, for missing it. Sorry about that, y'all. No, but that thing, something just fell off of my mic stand, and luckily it wasn't anything heavy, but that was kind of weird. I didn't do anything.
The fear on your face is pretty good.
Well, I mean, I just all of a sudden something's falling towards my eyes there. And I was like, what the heck just happened? Live radio.
Might have to review the tape on the live stream.
Luckily, I'm okay. That could have killed me.
Yeah, I know. Light flashed before your eyes.
Whew. Anyway, what was I saying? Messina. I don't think
draft.
Yeah, draft. Words. I just wouldn't anticipate. I wouldn't hold out hope. If anything, my advice to Carolina baseball fans would be expect Cole Messina to turn professional and then be happy when he comes back, if he were to come back, not the other way around.
Yes.
Don't set yourself up for disappointment. Set yourself up instead for excitement.
Good life lesson. Speaking
of disappointment, just got a few minutes here, so I don't have time to get into anything heavy. But I saw this story yesterday. We're going to Dallas next weekend. Luckily, I won't be taking a suitcase with $2.1 million worth of baseball cards in it.
Making that leave the house is probably a bad idea.
But one of the largest, the Dallas Card Show is one of the nation's largest baseball card or just, trading card shows in the country. I imagine they have football and Pokemon and hockey and all that stuff.
If there's a card, they have it.
Yeah. But a group called Legacy Cards with a Z and a guy named Ashish Jai had $2 million worth of cards stolen. And I watched a minute or so of the surveillance video, and it is rather obvious that 4 dudes knew exactly what they were doing and how they were going to do it. So 3 of them basically at one point, one guy, I read the article in the Dallas paper, and I'm looking right now at a little quicker one on CBS Sports. But in the Dallas paper, they talked about how one of the guys basically came into the card show and just started moving chairs. And so for like an hour, people just thought he was working for like the convention center, wherever center they had this thing. And he just kind of incorporated himself into the background of the scene, if you will. And then 3 other dudes came up a little bit later, and just for a second, like all had their phones, like looking at something, so that the guy that they knew the cards were in this thing would be distracted. And then dude that was there, like just
swiped it.
But it had some Mickey Mantle cards, like a Tom Seaver rookie that was worth like $100,000. Obviously to get up to $2 million worth of cards. And I saw some people saying like, well, why would you put $2 million worth of cards in one suitcase? Well, I mean, if you're at a trade show and you got them all right there, they'll fit. They are baseball cards after all. But how do you fence that? Like, that's my thing. Like, these card dealers, when you get up to cards that are worth that kind of money,
that are incredibly rare.
Yeah. You're not like going to your neighbor going, hey, buddy, you want to, like, yeah, I'll take it. Yeah. Like, I was joking with you earlier. I was like, oh, no. I found it in my granddad's attic. He died. And it was like stuck in his Bible. I got lucky. Like, it's been up there.
Sign.
It's like he's been up there for like 40 years. I didn't steal it.
Don't ask me where I got the case for this from.
But you're right. But then, like, very protective cases with, like, a barcode and all kinds of things, and they're insured.
Identification numbers.
Yeah.
Every
Absolutely.
single one of these.
Yeah, almost like a car, like a VIN number. Like, they know. Like, so they said, I saw one comment that said they'll break them and try to either reestablish their authenticity or... And I'm like, well, but they're all people, they have an inventory of what they're looking for.
And guess what just made news? Theft of a case full of $2 million worth of cards.
Yeah, I mean, you got to, like, sit on them for years, right?
Because this is kind of news.
Right. I don't know if this was, Like, it was well organized, but I'm not sure they were the smartest. We'll see, but I don't know how you fence that.
Better have a plan.
Yeah, good luck. Speaking of Dallas, SEC Media Days previews coming up. A lot of great ways to save money these days, but when you need to spend a little bit, can you do it without breaking the bank, if you will? No pun intended. Well, if you're a homeowner looking to make some home improvements, or you want to consolidate debt, and especially high interest debt, now is an excellent time to take a look at a home equity line of credit from Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They offer lower rates than a lot of big banks, plus the closing costs and application fees definitely lower than the big banks. Any way you can save money when you need to spend it, that's going to be beneficial to you. Unlock your home's equity and access that line of credit over a 10-year draw period. Maybe the kids need a bigger bathroom, a playroom. You want to redo that room over the garage into your man cave. Whatever it is that you want to do, you can apply today at palmettocitizens.org or stop into any of their convenient Midlands locations. There's 14 of them all around town. Check them out online, palmettocitizens.org, and achieve your potential. 4 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Second hour of the postgame show coming at you from the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia, South Carolina, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. Thanks again to our buddy Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central joining us last hour, talking a little Gamecock off-season baseball moves. You want to hear that? Elijah will have it up for you on the podcast page at 1075thegame.com or on the app, which you can get at the App Store, the Google Play Store, or any other place you get your app. And again, if somebody charges you for our app, they're doing it wrong because it's free.
That's right. It is not our app, and they have ripped it somewhere.
So, yeah.
And it's illegal. Call the police.
And if they tell you, oh, no, it's an enhanced version.
We don't offer 107.5 The Game Plus. I'm sorry. All we have is the minus. That's it. And if you do have an app that they offer an enhanced version and they enunciate the enhanced part of it and really own in on the enhanced part of it, don't click the links. Don't.
The look on your face. We don't have an enhanced version.
We don't. We have 107.5 The Game minus.
It's already so good you can't enhance it.
No. Unenhanceable. So someone says they have an enhanced version.
That may or may not be true. I don't know. We will get into our SEC Media Day Wednesday preview in just a second. Media Days preview of Wednesday. Next Wednesday, Bama, Florida, Mississippi State, Texas. That's been a theme of the week. We've been going day by day for the 4 days and the 4 schools per day on what we would like to hear, expect to hear, things like that. Not so much about the season itself or the team. How's their defense going to be? Are they going to run a 3-4 or a 4-3? Yeah, that'll come in August, but not quite yet.
We'll see
but
more of that.
I do have a little bit more now, courtesy of Chapel Fowler of McClatchy News Services. Today in Charlotte, let me see here to make sure I get this right here. North Carolina Business Court Chief Judge, that's a big title, Louis Bledsoe, wrote to deny several motions that Clemson had filed to stay and dismiss a lawsuit against the ACC. Again, from this piece, let me read verbatim. He says he denied the school's motion to dismiss the case on sovereign immunity grounds. He also denied Clemson's motion to stay the case, pause the case. Quote, the only court that has jurisdiction over Florida State, Clemson, and the ACC, and thus the only court that can assure a consistent, uniform interpretation of the grant of rights agreements and the ACC's constitution and bylaws, the determinations at the core of the pending action, is a North Carolina court. He did agree with Clemson on a couple of things. The ACC was looking for basically for the court to say that the grant of rights is valid and binding, and that he didn't go so far as to do that just yet. Like, that might be for somebody else to decide. He agreed with Clemson on a claim for the court to find a breach of contract by Clemson, saying that they have not really breached a contract yet. They've not announced anything. Clemson is taking a different approach. They want to get to the same destination as Florida State. This is me talking now. They want to get to the same destination as Florida State, but to be fair, Clemson they've taken a different approach. Like when you type in directions on your Maps app, and one of them is more direct, like fastest route, like that's Florida State. They're just kicking and screaming like a petulant child. Clemson's taking the scenic route, like Clark Griswold. They're going to go see the large ball of twine in the House of Mud. They still want to get to Wally World.
Just not going to get there.
They're just not going to get there quite as quick. Yeah. Florida State's trying to take the interstate the whole way. Let's see. He also granted Clemson's motions to dismiss a claim for the court to find that Clemson has breached, or that Clemson's breach. The implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing in the ACC's constitution and bylaws. All right. Again, they haven't done anything yet other than file a suit. So, and he also agreed with Clemson that they have not breached Clemson's fiduciary duty. That was dismissed with prejudice. That means it can be brought back. So not really much of a surprise. Most of this apparently was the same type of thing Florida State heard. And look, I'm no lawyer. If y'all want to talk to your lawyer friends about what all this means, have at it. All of us know a lawyer somewhere. Now, don't pay him. You need to get that for free.
That's the perk of having a sister who's one.
There you go.
I can just send it to her, and she will tell it to me. She'll regurgitate the information to me like I'm 5.
But look, from my point of view, and again, I've talked to some lawyers who have actually been working on this case. I've talked to some lawyers around this case. They agree too. Like basically, ultimately, there's going to be a consolidation of the venue for where this needs to be held, whether it's in federal court or whether all the parties will agree. Certainly, the ACC wants this to be heard in Charlotte and in North Carolina. Clemson and Florida State, I think, had to, from what I was told, you're going to file in your home area and then see what happens. But this judge has said the only court that can hear it and be fair to all parties is a court in North Carolina. And I wouldn't disagree with that, but I can see why Clemson and Florida State would. So we'll see. Again, there's been chatter that some type of announcement is coming tomorrow about the long-term future of Clemson and Florida State. I have seen zero other than one dude on Twitter, and I guess some people are picking up on that on, like, fan site message boards, which are not really a bastion of terrific information, just newsflash. I mean,
it's actually, that way for misinformation.
Yeah. Amen.
Quite the opposite.
Yes, quite. So we'll see. I just wouldn't anticipate anything major as the 4 remaining conferences. I was going to say the ACC is adding in teams too, but they haven't had a media days yet. But, I mean, Big 12 is having it now, and some people are saying, what Brett Yormark said is just going to let you know that as soon as it's done, they're going to announce. They're talking to Clemson and Florida State. Again, there's one guy out there who's got a bunch of followers, and I hesitate to say his name, so I'm not going to. If you want to go look it up, I'm sure you can find it, that said, hey, all that stuff I told you a couple of months ago about Clemson going to the SEC and FSU going to the SEC, yeah, that's not happening anymore, and instead they're going to the Big 12. And it's like, dude, you did this a couple of months ago. Because the same guy, remember, Elijah, the same guy said, breaking news. And it's like, this isn't breaking news.
He dropped the breaking news on this one today, too.
Yeah, it's conjecture. And, yeah, I mean, look, maybe he does or doesn't have it. I don't know. I don't care.
That's not news, though.
It's not news because nothing happened. Breaking news is when something happens. Breaking news, apartment fire. Breaking news, major interstate accident. Breaking news, some politician quits his job. That's breaking news. This is chatter and conjecture in the summertime college sports dead period. So we'll see. But again, up in Charlotte today, the ACC got the biggest victory. Clemson did not get their case dismissed. So there's that. 803-404-6100 for you to be a part of the program. You want to talk about this or anything else that's going on? I'd really urge you. I mean, look, we'll talk about anything, but I don't really want to get into a whole lot of Clemson versus the ACC or FSU versus the ACC or where Clemson and Florida State may ultimately end up. Again, I've said all along, I don't want to see the ACC blow up, and I'd like to see it remain relevant and strong, and I think Clemson and Florida State help that cause a lot, along with North Carolina and Miami. I think those are the 4 biggest brands, if you will. NC State had a hell of an athletics season last year. I think, was it the second school ever, Elijah, to have a top 25 football team, both men's and women's Final Four teams, and a College World Series appearance, something like that. So, NC State's a big deal to some. Anyway, I'm not here for a lot of. I don't know. If they go somewhere, great. If they don't, great. I'd rather them not because I don't want them in any particular league, but because I don't want to see the ACC suffer the same fate that the Pac-12 just did, because that was unnecessary. And really smart people who make a lot of money allowed that to happen. And there's really smart people that make a lot of money in the ACC, whether they run the member schools or whether they work at the conference office or whether they are the attorneys for any of those parties. This doesn't, and those that represent them at the Disney level, ESPN level. This just doesn't need to happen. So again, let Clemson and Florida State charge whatever they want. Give them 4 spots a game, and let them keep the money. Home games. Let them put a logo on the field and keep all the money. Let them put patches on their jersey and keep all the money. Or let them charge more for their patches because they have more eyeballs, so they say. And they do. But we don't need all this rigmarole. But again, I will contend, I do not believe that Clemson and Florida State combined bring the necessary revenue to the Southeastern Conference or Big Ten. I think they need to really think carefully about that because you have to create new revenue. And again, in the case of the ACC to the SEC for FSU and Clemson, you're going to ask Disney to negotiate against itself. And Disney, I don't think, is in the habit of doing that.
Haven't done it yet.
Not yet. And I don't know why they would start now over this. They might. They might. But I doubt it. Not right now. Maybe in a few years. Not right now. Anyway, let's get into our we haven't, okay. By the way, 1-1 Netherlands, England in the 52nd minute.
That one's getting spicy.
Yeah, could get good. Media Days preview Wednesday. Let's take one that's basically a quick no-brainer. We'll start with Mississippi State. We don't see them on the Carolina schedule this year, right? We don't, do we? Okay, just making sure.
Can't confirm.
In fact, of the 4 schools that we're talking about today and will be on the docket next Wednesday, only Alabama next season. Yeah, and the next 2?
Yep, just them.
Yuck.
At Alabama this year.
Jeff Lebby is there now. You need a total reset. I mean, we're not going to spend a lot of time on State, so just a couple of minutes here. Obviously a horrible story when Coach Leach died, and last year just didn't work. They made a nice move, or so they thought. It just didn't work out, and the talent they had was much more suited to what Mike Leach wanted to do. And then you hire a defensive-minded guy because the kids liked him, but you gotta, and I get you want to try to hold it together, whatever it may be. But Jeff Lebby wants this opportunity. He's a terrific OC. He's worked with a lot of great coaches, but it's going to take a little while, I think.
Yeah, well, because what Zach Arnett did, despite all the players lobbying for him and wanting him, he completely bulldozed the offense of what made that Mississippi State team fun to watch and good. I mean, they weren't just fun to watch. I mean, they had winning seasons. In 21, they were 7-6, and then 22, they were 9-4. Like the year Mike Leach died, they were really, really good. They were a really good football team. And Zach Arnett just kind of whizzed all over it as soon as he got the controls. And I think that's one of the reasons why they were really unsuccessful.
And it's odd that he would have. I mean, it's almost like, well, it's my team now.
Yeah, it feels like an ego trip.
Yeah,
like how hard. Like there are air raid disciples all over the place, man. You have a team that's built to run that. The hell you think you're doing? Who do you think you are? But that's why I like them having Jeff Lebby right now, because it's an offense that's gonna be fun to watch. And when you're a team like Arkansas or Mississippi State, if you're gonna be or not have the resources that your SEC peers do. If you're going to fight an uphill battle and it's going to be, every 5 or 6 years where you get to 9 wins, you better be at least fun to watch to bring in tickets.
Right.
And those type of offenses do really well. So getting somebody who is, maybe not quite the same air raid that Mike Leach was the innovator of, but he's kind of like an offset. Like if Mike Leach is, the Baptist ministry, he is Methodist, Art Briles, there's a couple differences here, but they're minuscule. But running the same type of offense, I think it can bring excitement back to that program. It's going to take a year because the roster's bad.
Yeah.
But I think after 2025 and 26, you're going to see that program at least be fun to watch and be competent.
Yeah. I mean, even last year, you think about it, I mean, they came here and Rodgers had a nice day, but
had career highs in passing yards.
So we'll talk about the Gators on the other side. Talk about a hot seat. Be right back. 98 degrees outside, y'all. Time to beat the heat with AAA heating and air across the South Carolina Midlands. You need a system upgrade, ready for something that's better, stronger, more efficient. You can get a free replacement estimate today. Log on to callAAAtoday.com. That's callAAAtoday.com. Punch in a few quick facts, and then the website will tell you what it's going to cost you to get a brand new system. Worried about how much it might cost you? Well, don't worry. With guaranteed financing, comfort is definitely within your budget, and Roy and Dana Finley have an even better special for you. 12 months, no payments or interest in 2024. You heard me right. 12 months, no payments or interest, plus the assurance of a 15-year parts and labor guarantee, a $1,500 system buyback rebate. They are ready to keep you and your family nice and comfortable for many, many years to come. Again, call AAAtoday.com, or for any other needs, 803-677-1500 for AAA Heating and Air. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Wednesday afternoon. Jay and Elijah with you. Before we get into our preview of the Florida Gators, I want Elijah to pull up today's poll question available for you at 107.5 The Game on the Twitters.
Don't have to pay for that either.
Nope.
If someone's charging you for a poll question on Twitter, call the police.
Or if somebody's charging you for Twitter, unless you want to spring for the extra Twitter, which I don't see any benefit too.
Yeah, I get enough fulfillment out of the real one. Fulfillment and mental degradation as well.
Yeah, I'd like to say I get fulfillment from Twitter.
So that's also like,
not gonna lie, dude. I really don't.
that's because you don't have fun DM group chats like I'm in with lifelong friends where we just share memes and funny videos with each other.
You do that on Twitter.
Yeah.
I guess it's easier than doing it on text.
Because if you send it on text, then you have to open Twitter. So when you just do it on Twitter, no one has to reopen the app.
Okay.
So
makes sense.
we can cram a lot of us in there. Not everybody's got different phones, and I hate having a group text with the green bubbles. It's just a weird iPhone thing.
Don't disagree with that either.
Don't love it. So we all have, same device, same app.
That's why I hate texting Terry Ford. I'm like, ugh.
Green bubble guy. Get a load of the green bubble guy.
Come on, man.
Incredible. Us blue bubble guys. This one right here.
Terry's convinced himself that, people that have Apple devices are in some kind of weird cult.
Well, if this is a cult, then consider me David Koresh, buddy. I'm at the top of the list. I will run this.
I think
cult.
when you have the largest company on planet Earth in terms of financial or valuation, rather,
you succeeded.
It's no longer a cult.
Yeah.
You've kind of gone mainstream.
You're actually now. It might be a cult if you're not in it.
Yeah, and that's what I told him, and he was like, he wasn't buying that.
He's not going to hear it.
He's still thinking back to like high school when like 20% of people had Macintosh computers.
Back when it was niche.
When they worked, and then like the other 80% were always like, my computer always breaks. And I was like, because you got a crappy computer. Anyway, I digress. Poll question.
Yes, poll question of the day at 1075 The Game on Twitter. Which team has the best chance of preventing Georgia from winning the SEC title? I think we can all agree, anyone that has watched college football last year and that keeps up with the sport and all the consensus media picks, whether it be Phil Steele, whether it be Athlon, whoever, is going to pick Georgia to win the SEC. But who is their biggest threat to the throne in 2024? Your options: Texas, Ole Miss, Alabama, or LSU. And I did comment other because I think you can put LSU and Missouri in that boat.
Missouri.
Missouri. So if you feel Missouri, feel free to comment Missouri. But as of right now, Texas, 41.7% of the vote. Alabama in second at 28.1% of the vote. Ole Miss at 22.3%, and then LSU and others at 7.9%.
Who's Georgia's biggest rival on an annual basis, would you say?
I would say it's Florida.
So you didn't put Florida on there?
I did not.
Why?
Because they have no shot.
And here we go with that.
Look at that. That was
Florida, to me, it has been even more underwhelming and disappointing than you might have been able to imagine. And I don't say that with any malice. They shouldn't be this bad.
Mm-hmm. They shouldn't be 5
and I know if you're a Gamecock fan, well, Jay, they beat our team, or if you're a third-party person, well, they beat South Carolina. They did. I mean, South Carolina blew it that day, man.
And that was their best game of the year.
They blew it. And again, there were some things Carolina did wrong, and you had a fluky play go Florida's way, and it all ended up with Florida winning that football game at Williams-Brice, and yet both teams still missed out on a bowl game. The difference is that Florida has 3 national championships and like 10 SEC championships and 4 Heisman winners. And it's in arguably it's certainly one of the 3 best states for just pure talent production because it's in one of the 3 biggest states in the country and it's football crazy. And yet they are just severely underachieving. And I don't quite understand why. And that's going to be the question to Billy Napier, I think, in some form, in many different forms. Why are you not getting it done? That's my question. What isn't clicking? Because they've got talent. They've got resources.
He's recruited really well.
They've got fans that love that program. They've got people that want to help them. I can't think of any one thing Florida doesn't have going for it right now other than a coaching staff that doesn't seem to be able to put the jigsaw puzzle together. The pieces are all there. They're not missing any pieces. I mean, look, you always want to go get a guy here or there. I get it. But that team last year, that's not a 5-7 team. That team probably should have been closer to 9-3, but they just can't put it together. So that's and his seat is smoldering.
Yeah, which is wild to think of considering how his debut was and how it went when they upset Utah at home. Like that seemed like, oh, you should have a team that can contend for the SEC. You should be back, as the kids would like to say. But the biggest thing with Billy Napier this year, and what's going to be really hard to weed through when it comes to the discourse around Billy Napier, is this team's not going to win more than 8 games. Guaranteed. If they win 8 games with this schedule, that should be the equivalent of any other team winning 10, right? And for those who don't know, they not only get the worst SEC draw, they have tough non-conference games. They start off playing Miami,
right,
who's a legit contender to win the ACC.
Right.
Samford, they have to play, but Cortland Finnegan ain't walking through that door. They should win that one pretty easily. Texas A&M at home. I think A&M's going to be really good. They have to go at Mississippi State. They play Central Florida, who has KJ Jefferson, and by the way, beat the living hell out of Oklahoma State after Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma in Bedlam. Oklahoma State, a team that played for the Big 12 title last year. They have to go at Tennessee this year, which they haven't won at in a couple since the second to last time they've been. But they have to go at Tennessee. They host Kentucky, who I think's really good. I think them and Kentucky are kind of on par in terms of like returning production. Florida has a deeper roster with more high school talent. This hasn't been developed yet, but they still have to play Georgia, as they do every year. They have to go at Texas, host LSU, play Ole Miss at home this year, and then go at Florida State, who, oh, by the way, also ACC contender.
Yeah.
There's really only one game or 2 games, Samford and at Mississippi State, where you're like, oh, yeah, there's your easy wins. If they win 8 of those games, that's not like going 8-4 anywhere else. So when it comes to talking about the discourse around Billy Napier and his job, my biggest question is, can you make 7-5 look stylish? Can you make 8-4 look stylish? Because for someone that's on the hot seat, an 8-4 season at Florida usually is grounds to go ahead and can you and find somebody else.
It is, man. I mean, that's a team, a program. I say a team because I want to differentiate between the two. A team is the any 1 year version. The program is the larger overall health. They should expect to win the Southeastern Conference in most seasons. Mm-hmm. And they should certainly go into virtually every season with that belief. According to PFF, you mentioned it, the second hardest schedule in America.
It's loaded.
Their PFF power ranking 34th in D1, well, at least in FBS. So top 25%. Mm-hmm. The PFF projected win total 6.2. FanDuel's over under 4.5. Ugh. Again, I would still take the over.
I'd feel good about the over.
But here we go. Their last recruiting class, 10th nationally. They've got loads of talent. So what's Billy not doing? What didn't happen? That has to be the question to me. It's not what are you doing, what aren't you doing? Mm-hmm. And I know you could parse those in both ways, but what aren't you doing, man?
And he's got this massive coaching staff. He's built them like a good contender. I mean, he was on the Nick Saban staff at Alabama where they have analysts all over the place. Mm-hmm. He's kind of taken that same model and brought it to Alabama, but the execution's not the same. I think there might be some player development issues, and I'm going to put the emphasis on some because there have been some really good player development, like Osiris Torrance. Whenever he left from Louisiana with Billy to Florida, became a, second round or first round NFL draft choice. Ricky Pearsall, leaving Arizona State to come to Florida, became a first rounder, and you can almost argue that his game here at Williams-Brice was one of the reasons he became a first rounder. But Graham Mertz also improved as the season went on, but it's not been enough. They're missing some pieces defensively that have really kept them from being able to take that jump. And how they're doing that this year, I don't know. They only returned 6 starters on a suspect defense. That might be the thing that keeps them from being able to make it.
And you make a good point. 8-4 could look like 10, and that might be able to salvage some things with him and Scott Strickland working together on it. I don't know, man. But if you can go get Lane Kiffin next season, if it ain't working out, I'd go do it. We'll talk about Bama on the other side. Guys, you've been feeling off lately. Maybe you're getting a little bit older and just not quite as spry as you once were, and it's just kind of crept up on you until you finally realize, man, I don't feel like myself anymore. But why? Well, don't wait for it to change or go away. Instead, you need to set up a time to see Dr. Dan Balknight and his team at the men's clinic. You'll get a one-on-one consultation that gets to the root of the issues, because Dan will sit down and ask you, what do you do every day? What's your diet like? What's your work habit like? What's your home life like? What are your, the other activities that you do? Where are the holes? Where are the gaps? And then they'll work to fill those gaps and get you back to feeling like you used to and like you want to. No such thing as a one-size-fits-all treatment at the men's clinic. Set up that consultation, 803-875-MENS. Learn more about what they're doing online at themensclinicsc.com.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you here that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon, and we'll start with a pretty big one. There's a serious fire over at Old Richland Fashion Mall. It is currently on fire, and Forest Drive is blocked on both directions near Beltline Boulevard. So Forest Drive, both east and westbound near Highway 12 and Percival Road, is completely blocked while that fire is being tended to. We also have an accident on Clemson Road at South Carolina 555 and Faro Road, one on US 176 at Broad River Road at Bush River Road, and lastly, one on US 378 near Lower Richland Boulevard.
Talking our SEC Media Days preview. Day 3 is where we are today with Bama, Florida, Mississippi State, and Texas. The schools on the agenda. Do want to remind you, we will be at Media Days all next week. At least Monday through Thursday. That's when the event runs. But
don't plan on staying any longer.
The halftime show, no. The halftime show and the postgame show will be live each day from the Omni Hotel in downtown Dallas. Looking forward to that. Speaking of being out at places, by the way, come see Elijah and me Friday at Craft and Draft on Divine Street, right up from 5 Points.
That's right. We'll be there for our Friday show, and then Saturday from 2 to 4, I'll be.
They have a big event going on Saturday.
Like Craft and Draft?
Yeah.
Craft and Draft does?
Yeah.
Really?
I guess you're
I'm going
going
to hit that up afterwards.
be there for that for a while. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
But we'll be there 3 to 6 Friday. Come say hey. Grab a beer or
Hang
2.
out with us for a bit. I'll have 3.
I'll
4.
I will I'll hang around. If anybody wants to hang around after the show, come say hey. I'll be hanging around and having a beer.
That's right. That's always the best.
I bet it'll be an IPA. In fact, I would go so far as to say the odds are, I wouldn't even put odds on it.
Minus 5,000.
Yes, I wouldn't even put odds on it.
You will win no real money.
That's right.
I'll bet $1 million that Jay gets an IPA, and I will win $1 million in 1 cent.
That's right. But I'm pulling for you. We just talked about Florida. Again, why isn't it working? That's the overarching theme. I think we both sort of feel that way. That's the question. What's going wrong? And that might be uncomfortable for Billy next week. I mean, he makes a lot of money, so he'll get over it.
You can handle an uncomfortable question.
But it's it is interesting. Conversely, we'll go to Alabama next, and Kalen DeBoer obviously taking over as Nick Saban has departed. Coach DeBoer taking Washington to the national championship game last season, beating Oregon twice in the process. Not in the playoff, obviously, but in the regular season and in the Pac-12 championship game. I love this hire. He's gotten the bulk of the roster to hang around, those that could return. There's always going to be departures in today's world. They continue to recruit at an incredibly high level. Obviously, all the resources necessary are there for you, and I think the school has understood that they need to keep that. I guess the question is going to be for him, from my point of view, what do you do with the expectations? How do you come in and see what have you learned about the expectation level and how to handle that? That's the one thing that he maybe hasn't had at his stops. Now, he may put those kind of expectations on himself, and clearly, Elijah, he's had tremendous success.
Mm-hmm. Everywhere he's gone.
That fan base will embrace you, but we know what they expect. And part of that was really shown last year. A lot of people around the country, myself included for a bit, said, man, I don't think that Alabama team's that good. But they only lost the one time until the playoff. And again, I contend, I know you and I may disagree a little bit, if Alabama had been doing that the whole time, I don't think they lose at home to Texas, despite how good Texas is. That's my opinion. Doesn't matter now because it happened. But Alabama actually ended up being very good, despite being an ugly kind of good. They had to go backwards to an old school Nick Saban style of just don't let people score. We're not going to score 40 points a game anymore, but we're still going to win. So now that's what you're taking over for. You've got a guy who finished 6th in the Heisman balloting as your quarterback, but he might not be the prototypical Kalen DeBoer type of quarterback. But you're gonna dance with who brung you, if you will. But I just think it's handling the expectation. That's the question, because the expectation is national championship, not national championship or bust per se. But there's a very comfortable expectation that we're Alabama and we win the national championship.
Yeah, my biggest questions will be, one of that is how do you handle the expectation in terms of how the fans handle the expectation? Because like you mentioned, the expectation in Alabama is always, no matter who's coaching or who's playing, national championship. Are you going to be cool with 8-4 while still being a really good football team, or 9-3?
No.
And the thing is, this year they should be. In this era of college football, you should be, because that can get you into the playoffs still. And that can get you into the dance, and get you a chance to win a national championship. And to be able to do that without Nick Saban, after the greatest to ever do it, is a blessing to be able to do that and follow it up with that. I don't think they're rational enough to be able to accept that truth, which makes this a lot harder for Kalen DeBoer. But you look at this Alabama team, Milrose coming back. You have a lot of really good offensive linemen coming back, including at center, Parker Brailsford, who was the center for Washington, who won the Joe Moore Award, came over here with Kalen DeBoer. So there's a lot to be optimistic about. But you have almost little to no experience at wide receiver. and at running back, at major skill positions. Can he do what he did at Washington and develop the likes of a Jalen Polk, a Rome Odunze, a Jalen McMillan, and be able to get them to become legit options on the perimeter to make teams have to respect them? Because if teams have to respect them and you are able to stretch the field, that's when Jalen Milroe's dangerous, is when he's scrambling and when he's throwing the deep ball. He threw a higher percentage of deep balls than anybody else in the SEC last year, and he connected on a decent bit of them and almost as much as anybody not named Jaden Daniels. Is he able, without Ryan Grubb, who was his OC at Washington, who was really the architect of that offense, who's now the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, can he...
He went down there for what, like a couple of weeks?
Yeah, he was down there for a couple of weeks, and then the Seahawks called, and you're not turning that down.
I think Mrs. Coach Grubb said, I don't really want to leave Seattle.
Yeah. And, you're going to make more money? Okay, let's do that. Yeah. So Mrs. Grubb, I think, made a good call there in convincing him to go back up to Seattle. But Coach Sheridan is going to be the offensive coordinator. Nick Sheridan was the tight ends coach at Washington last year. So him and Kalen DeBoer will be tasked with coming up with an offense that fits a quarterback whose skill set is a little different than Michael Penix's, because Michael Penix was a little bit of a statue. And when the pocket broke down, he wasn't very good. So the whole offense is designed around that type of quarterback. Milroe can run. He can absolutely fly. He also can chuck the ball down the field pretty well and struggles in the intermediate passes. Completely different than what Michael Penix was. How do you recreate that offense to fit him and get it to where you're going to be able to score on the defenses that you're going to be playing this year? Because you have to go at Wisconsin this year. And Luke Fickell's a pretty good defensive coach. Yeah. Wisconsin's going to be better than they were last year. You got to play Georgia at home this year. You got to play Tennessee on the road, a team that can score a lot of points. And if your defense has a hard time, it might be tough to be able to win a shootout. You have to play Missouri, who might be one of the top 3 best offenses in the SEC. Would you be able to keep up with them? There's a lot of offense you're going to have to keep up with and a lot of defenses that are going to be able to help keep you off the scoreboard as well. You have to go at Oklahoma, Brent Venables. The biggest question is what he's got that defense at right now. So it's a really, really tough schedule. And going 9-3 would be a win, and it could put them in position to be in the college football playoff. 10-2 would put them in a position to be in the college football playoff. So 1, can he get the offense good enough to get there? And 2, would the brass at Tuscaloosa and the fans be able to be patient enough to accept a year or 2 of not going 11-1 or 12-0?
You know, I think the brass will. I think some fans will. You make a good point that 9-3. I don't know that 8-4 does. If it does, great. I'm here for it. I personally am here for it. If 8-4 gets you in the playoff, 9-3 probably can. I think back to that Auburn team of a few years back that was 8-3 or 9-3 and really had a couple of close losses.
Yeah, if you lose a lot of one-score games, they won 4 one-score games last year. You're going to get in some one-score battles that aren't going to go your way.
And that's what you do in this league, and that's another thing. That's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for the coaching staff. But again, it's a coach that expects to win because that's what he's done for his whole career. I mean, he wins. That's just it. He wins. If you're in the playoff, they're probably going to be okay. But it's difficult to shake that kind of winning habit and say, oh, well, yeah, we'll take a step down a little bit as long as. Now, if the 9-3 gets you into the playoff and you cruise through and win a championship, nobody gives a crap. And that's why I've said, too, for a lot of fan bases and just fans in general, get used to something like Eli Manning's Giants, because that's probably going to happen at some point here in the not-too-distant future. And that's okay. That's okay.
Someone's going to show why this was necessary.
But there will be some who, if it's 8-4, that'll be. But I'll be interested to hear how he's handling some of those expectations. We'll touch on the Texas Longhorns coming up. 11 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you, and we are at the death. England has just gone ahead of the Netherlands in the 90th minute, 2-1. As long as this goal stands, thought we were heading towards extra time, but it looks like England's going to head on and play Spain. We shall see. But go England. I'm wearing my
How about that?
Wearing my throwback. Just this jersey's 22 years old, man. 2002 World Cup.
Michael Owen jersey.
My Michael Owen jersey. So we'll see. Go England. And for all my friends at the Bulldog out in Harbison, Billy and Mark, congrats, boys. Let's hold on and get it done. To Lee, to Tony, all our friends around here that are from good old England.
It should stand, right?
It should. It should. I don't see.
I only caught the tail end of it.
You never know these days, man. But it looks like that one was played onside. But we'll see.
Oh yeah.
We shall see. Looks like it looks
good to me.
Good. Texas is the last team we discussed today in terms of next week's SEC Media Days preview, at least for the Wednesday edition. Texas, according to say it out loud, Jay, Pro Football Focus, is the number 2 team in the country behind Georgia with a 17% chance to win the conference, 5th toughest strength of schedule in America. PFF says they'll win 9 games. FanDuel has their over-under total at 10.5. My question for Steve Sarkisian is, do the expectations double for you? You come into this conference, which is more difficult than your last conference. Yes, you went to the playoff. Yes, you nearly won your playoff game. Terrific game last year. Yes, you went to Tuscaloosa and won. But how much more is on your shoulders right away? You know, Sark knows this conference. He's coached with Nick, so that's a thing. And big time football can be big time football. I mean, I think sometimes we overdo. Well, they're going to the SEC. It's not the NFL. It's
right.
really good. It's really good, but it's
Texas
not.
makes NFL players too.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not the NFL. But I think that's the thing is what you know. Do you try? You know, the question to Steve would be something to the effect of: do you try and tell your team it's really nothing? You know, are we pulling a Coach Dale here and saying, listen, 10 feet basket, 15 feet from the line, it's still football?
I think you kind of have to a little bit because look, what Media Day is going to be next week is going to be an absolute circus, as almost all SEC Media Days are, but this circus is special to you. This is your special circus. Congratulations, Texas and Oklahoma. For a week, you get your special circus because it's your first SEC Media Day. So it might be it might feel for maybe players a little daunting, a little bigger, a little intimidating. But look, if I'm Steve Sarkisian, I'm just looking at the tape of winning at Alabama last year and saying, look, you did this to those guys at their home stadium. You're going to play at a lot of home stadiums like that. And if that's something you can do there, you can do it anywhere else in this league. You can win at LSU. You can win anywhere in this league if you prove that you could beat that playoff team in their home building last season. That is exactly what I would do. My biggest question mark for this Texas team, and them and Alabama kind of have a similar issue on offense with skill position. They had to replace a lot of receivers. They had to replace a lot on the defensive line. They had 2 guys that were legit NFL dudes on the defensive line get drafted, and then have 2 dudes that were legit receivers get drafted as well. They lose some really important positions. Can Isaiah Bond be a number 1 receiver in the Big 12 in the SEC? I mean, he was really good towards the end of the year for Alabama.
Where was he? Yeah, where was he on Bama's production list?
So for Bama, Isaiah Bond was the 2nd in receiving yards, but had the most catches.
So yeah, like he can be a number 1.
He can,
and he'll probably have. Not probably. I mean, I'll give viewers a slight nod over Milroe right now in terms of a thrower of the football.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely more
as a passer.
Yeah.
Is he a really better overall quarterback for the SEC? And we'll again, like I say a lot, ask me around Halloween, I'll let you know.
I feel pretty good about yours.
He's good, man.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
But can you recreate a lot? Because a lot of those are transfer portal additions. Mm-hmm. Their whole wide receiver room is basically transfer portal.
Sark can run an offense.
He's a genius.
I just my thing about Sark is I want to see Texas do it again. I got every belief that Texas can. I'm not like, oh, they're a flash in the pan, one hit wonder. I'm not that at all. but you have to go do it again.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, you have to go do it again.
Pat Riley's disease of me is actually one of the better shticks, or I guess analysis of teams that have a lot of success that don't recreate it. As a lot of teams fall into the disease of me and go from 1 year being really good and wanting theirs the next, and it derailing the goal of the group.
England did hold on to win, so there you go. We'll have some of that for you in the headlines of the day. A little bit around Carolina basketball in terms of an opponent that is set. Might be an interesting matchup, sort of. We'll explain all that for you, too. More from Big 12 Media Days. All of that coming up in the final hour of the postgame show.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways, and we'll start with a couple serious ones. We do have a serious fire at Old Richland Fashion Mall. It is on fire right now, so Forest Drive, it looks like, is blocked from both directions near Beltline Boulevard, so avoid that at all costs. We also have an accident that has the right exit ramp completely blocked on 20 eastbound. That's over at exit 73, South Carolina 277. We also have an accident that's got the left lane completely blocked on 20 west after Monticello Road near exit 68.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Wednesday afternoon. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips, also the final hour of the postgame show. Let's jump right in. Got some Gamecock basketball news for you. The Gamecocks was announced today will take on Xavier in the opening game of the 2024 Fort Myers tip-off. That will be on November 25th. It'll be an 8:30 tip time on FS1. All these games will take place at the beautiful Suncoast Credit Union Arena on the campus of Florida Southwestern State College. Elijah, you're a mid-major guy. I'm sure you know a lot about Florida Southwestern State College.
I know a lot about that arena.
Yeah?
They play in that bad boy a lot. A lot of good tournaments playing there.
Fort Myers, I've never been, but I have a buddy who grew up in Fort Myers that I went to high school with.
Florida Gulf Coast resides there.
It's the southern Gulf Coast, too, way down there. It's warm and nice all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard Florida Gulf Coast in terms of campus, campuses in the country.
Yeah.
Top 10.
Okay.
Best.
Well, anyway, Florida Southwestern State College. So there you go. But interesting, and I said, it could be a little interesting for Carolina fans. There was a belief that Sean Miller might have become South Carolina's coach and then jilted him.
There's a little bit of juice here.
Or not.
Depending on who you believe.
May or may not have been at a steakhouse 2 blocks away. I don't know.
One we could walk to from here.
Yeah, I'll be there in a couple minutes, especially if you want to hook me up. It's a fine place.
Good for Sean. Got a meal out of it.
Carolina Xavier, Monday the 25th. The third place game and championship game will take place on Tuesday the 26th. I guess there's 2 brackets to this thing. Miami of Ohio is going to play Siena. Jacksonville will play Mercer. Michigan plays Virginia Tech. Carolina plays Xavier. So you have the Palms division. Oh, I see it now. Now that I go and scroll for the whole schedule. The Palms division is Miami versus Siena. That's Miami, Ohio.
The Ben Roethlisbergers.
What are they now? Red Storm? No, that's St. John's. What is Miami of Ohio?
They're still the Red Hawks.
Red Hawks.
Yeah.
Well, you say still. See, they were something else when I was growing up.
See, I think my entire life they've been the Red Hawks.
Yeah, probably so. Jacksonville versus Mercer, the other game in the Palms division. Then the Beach division is Carolina, Xavier, and Michigan, Virginia Tech. So there you go. All right. So Carolina, Xavier, Monday, November 25th, 8:30, FS1. Set your calendar now. That's Thanksgiving week, yeah? Sound right to you?
Last week in November, yeah.
Usually the last week in November.
Rarely is it. Is it not?
There you go. Couple of things here for you. Again, Clemson news. Clemson's motion to have the countersuit against them has been denied today. Reading verbatim from David Hale's piece, Judge Lewis Bledsoe, who's also overseeing the ACC suit against Florida State, ruled that the ACC did have jurisdiction to file its suit in Mecklenburg County. Clemson had hoped to have the suit stayed or dismissed based on a sovereign immunity claim. Again, the big quote here in what was a 53-page ruling. I'll spare you 52 3/4 of that.
That sounds like a good bedtime story. I'd be out quick.
The only court that has jurisdiction over FSU, Clemson, and the ACC, and thus the only court that can assure a consistent, uniform interpretation of the grant of rights agreements and the ACC's constitution and bylaws, the determinations at the core of the pending actions, is a North Carolina court. That, again, from Judge Lewis Bledsoe. The conference has put out a statement. We are pleased with today's ruling as it confirms that only a North Carolina court can render a decision that would apply to both Clemson and Florida State. The opinion also reinforces what the ACC has clearly articulated from day one. The North Carolina courts are the proper place to enforce and interpret the ACC's agreements. As the court found, Clemson does not challenge whether the ACC grant of rights is valid or enforceable. This recognizes the ACC's consistent position that the 2013 and 2016 grant of rights are valid and enforceable agreements that each of our members entered into voluntarily with full knowledge of their terms. Clemson has said a lot here. They aren't saying they're leaving. They're not saying Clemson has said we're trying to figure out exactly what our different legal options are, but we need the courts to tell us, and that's why we've done what we've done. Basically, it tells, the grant makes you tell the conference that you're leaving, and then there's a number. Most people believe that Clemson and Florida State are simply trying to, A, find what that number is and then negotiate it down. The ACC is basically like, yeah, no, we're not going to let you do that because you signed it. And that's what I've always said the whole time is you signed it. There was no gun at your head. You signed it.
You read it through. A little different than us reading the terms and conditions to use our iPhone
Yeah.
or anything like that.
Clemson has argued that the grant would no longer apply if they choose to leave, even though the language very expressly seems to say, if you leave, we still have your rights.
Which seems counterintuitive.
It does.
To leave. If you don't have your own TV rights, then.
There will be another hearing tomorrow over some similar things, I suppose, in Pickens County. Again, I'm no lawyer, so I don't know. Get this thing in federal court or something, or just get together and figure it out. If you want to leave, the thing is, and this comes back around to it. And I know I said earlier I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it, and I don't, because it takes us down so many different rabbit holes, and then you got to climb back out of them. Do you know where you're going to go? I told you yesterday, and I had a lawyer tell me that the term tortious interference could be very much applied here by the Atlantic Coast Conference toward any other conference that could be proven to have interfered with the business of the Atlantic Coast Conference.
15-yard penalty.
Yeah. I think it is a 15-yarder, but it also comes with a large monetary penalty.
So it's like if you committed pass interference in college, but you get fined for it if it's egregious.
Yes. And I don't think this is like, $1,000 fine, man.
$10 fine?
I think it might be more like a 9-figure fine, and then some.
Your fine will be 9. Oh, that's not bad. Figures. Oh,
and a good 9 figures. What it sounds like to me that it could ultimately be, and I don't think that the Big Ten of the Southeastern Conference want any part of that.
Can't raise that money at a benefit, I'm afraid.
Now, again, can you find a way? We talk about this a bunch. Can you find a way to have backdoor conversations, back channel conversations? Sure, you can. But you better be super, 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 super darn careful if you have those. But I'm sure there is a way to have them. Yes. Again, my opinion has been for quite some time, and this goes back to me being someone who years ago said, man, it'd be good if Clemson was in the Southeastern Conference, and the Carolina-Clemson game would be like the Iron Bowl. And I'm telling you, Elijah, man, the first time I said that, we were back in the old building, so it's been a while. And I heard from fans from both schools, like, shut up, Phillips, you're dumb. Like, Carolina fans didn't want to hear it, and Clemson fans didn't want to hear it. I was like, all right, I'm just trying to make the game have that much more juice. Like, I mean, why not? They're here. Everybody else.
In-conference rivalry games have more juice.
That's Iron
true.
Bowl and the Egg Bowl, things like that that'd be fun.
Other sports, play them in a conference basketball tournament or a baseball tournament.
That'd be great. But people back then, and now all of a sudden, Clemson fans are clamoring to get into the Southeastern Conference. Hoping against hope, I think, sometimes. And Carolina fans obviously want none of it. And I get it. And I remember asking Paul Feinbaum the last time we were in Atlanta was 2 years ago for media days. I was like, what do you think, Paul? Can Carolina and Florida State grab a few people in the conference and do what they can to keep those schools out? And he was like, I don't think they can. If they really, if enough of the presidents say this is the right thing to do, then they'll get them in. I think now with the expansion being official, it's a 75% vote. So if 12 schools were to say yes, should the issue come up for a vote, then whoever could get in. Again, do they bring the money? Do they bring the necessary resources? Do they end up, I think the Big 12 is going to be an interesting test case this year, Elijah. And you and I talked about this. in football cannibalization of some sorts. Is the league so good that you got a bunch of 4-4, 5-4
conference records?
And is that going to keep you out? Now, I don't think if there's enough of them, it might not. But here's the thing. The Big Ten, my opinion, the Big Ten is adding a current great team, but they aren't adding, in my opinion, anybody that is of the long-term. Well, I think the SEC is adding stronger programs. Let's put it that way. Oregon is great right now. Southern California needs to find its way again. I'm curious as to whether Washington can remain where they are. I think Washington slips.
At least this year.
And UCLA doesn't give a crap about football. You know, they just don't. UCLA could probably be the best program in the country, and they just don't give a crap.
The most attended game in their stadium each year is in January.
Right.
When was the last time you seen the Rose Bowl?
When's the last time UCLA played in the Rose Bowl?
Oh,
Didn't Terry Donahue take him to the Rose Bowl? Like maybe when I was in high school?
Mark Harmon. Just kidding.
Maybe. I don't know.
Shout out NCIS.
Seriously, when is the last time UCLA?
It's been a long time.
When's the last time UCLA went to the Rose Bowl as the champion of the Pac whatever? Were they even the Pac-12 the last time UCLA?
Absolutely not. No.
So
no.
Pac-10. I remember Coach Donahue.
There's not.
Coach Donahue had some good teams in the like mid to late 80s. Like when Troy Aikman was there.
That guy was pretty good.
Yeah, did Troy Aikman go to a Rose Bowl? Let's look that up. Anyway, so again, I'm not picking on Clemson fans and Florida State fans, but I don't think that you're as attractive to the Southeastern Conference as you believe yourselves to be, because they don't need you to be better. You don't really make the Southeastern Conference better. You make it heavier. And yes, you're good at football. See, no one's denying. I've heard from some Clemson fans, Clemson's this and this and this in football. I say, dude, ain't nobody talking about how good you are at football. That's not the point. The point is, do you add real value to the conference? And the answer is no, you don't. The conference is already the best conference. You don't make it better. You really don't. And I don't think the Big Ten wants you either, because you don't really fit their mold. That's just my opinion.
1998, UCLA's last Rose Bowl appearance.
Wow.
Coached by, you guessed it, Bob Toledo.
I would not have guessed that.
Which is the irony. Yeah.
Or him.
1998. They got beat by Wisconsin.
Anyway, there you go. A couple other quick hits. I didn't mean to go that long on that, but Clemson's motion was denied. They'll be back in court on Friday. Kawhi Leonard is not going to play for the United States. We can pick on Kawhi all we want. Kawhi says he's healthy. The Clippers don't want him to play. The Clippers pay him a lot of money. Their head coach, Ty Lue, is on the staff, and they've been at practices this week. You know, he can play. I think he wants to play for the United States. And I don't think the Clippers want him to play. And I think he's being pressured to some degree. And maybe let him. Derek White's going to take his place. I'm good with that. I like Derek White. He just won an NBA title. He's going to be hungry, I think, to go do some more and have like this is the best year of my life kind of thing, at least as a professional.
Right.
And Tatum's on there.
Tatum's already on there.
Yeah.
Brown, I don't think is. No.
So I'm not surprised, though. I'm disappointed because I wanted to say I like Kawhi. I like Kawhi. But yeah, I told you earlier, Kawhi is a man in his 30s who has knees of a man in his, 80s. His knees are bad, man.
Oh, when I was filling in for Terry earlier, I went through all of the last, 8 seasons of the games he's played. He's only played more than 70 games, or more than 60 games in a season, once since 20.
I mean, he just had his knees are shot, and he gears up for the playoffs. But you got to get into the playoffs. That's the headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media. Get ahead of the football rush, 803-948-8327 for all your home theater needs, indoors, outdoors, one room, whole house, anything else you want in a home entertainment system. Integrated Media provides it. More on SEC Media Days coming up. Like I just told you, football season is nearly here, and that means finding the best way to watch the big game when you're not at Williams-Brice or your other favorite college football stadiums. Then the best way to catch the game is with an amazing home theater system from Integrated Media. There is no one better in the Midlands at getting it done. I can speak to that firsthand. Just one call to Integrated Media. They come to you. They'll walk around with you at your house, figure out what's best for you and how to set things up. You can get those beautiful new Samsung TVs that look like art, the frame TVs. When they're not tuned in, you can say, oh, I got a Van Gogh. And then, boom, you're watching an SEC football game. How about that, huh? Couple that with a built-in Dolby surround system like you're part of the action. They've got outdoor systems that look and sound just like the indoors as well, with equipment made to be outside all the time. Check them out on Facebook and Instagram. Set up a time for them to come out. 803-948-8327. Feel like you are there with my friends at Integrated Media. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Wednesday afternoon. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you, talking a lot of college football as we get ready for SEC Media Days. We will be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at the Omni in downtown Dallas. The halftime show and postgame show coming at you live. We'll have it's going to be super busy with two more schools, with the commissioner, There's a lot that's going on, and we'll have our, hopefully, as best we'll have a lot of guests. I mean, I can't tell you all who, but most often
They're everywhere.
The commissioner stops by, and our good friend Tony Barnhart will stop by. We'll do our best to effort our buddy Andy Staples and others.
And he'll be in the house. Sometimes
we get Feinbaum. Alyssa Lang will be there, so we'll try to talk with Alyssa. Yeah, all kinds of people. Yeah. And then different guys from different schools. Like I'm looking forward to meeting some people on the Oklahoma beat. I don't really know any.
Looking forward
or the
to
Texas
learning.
beat. Just new stuff.
We get to make new friends.
And again, I'm going to go try to buy my wife the cheapest thing I can find at the original Neiman Marcus store, which is right around the corner, apparently.
Maybe Matthew McConaughey should show up for Texas on behalf of Texas.
Oh, jeez. That'd be fun.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I'd love to interview Matthew McConaughey about Texas being in the SEC.
Poll question today, speaking of Texas, sort of.
That's right. Yeah, speaking of Texas, because they have the most votes in this so far. The poll question of the day at 1075 The Game on Twitter: which team has the best chance of preventing Georgia from winning the SEC title? Since Georgia's pretty much the consensus favorite to win the league this year, the options are Texas, Ole Miss, Alabama, LSU, or comment other. And at 42.1%, it is Tejas in the lead, a pretty heavy favorite to be the main contender for Georgia. They do actually play each other.
They do
on a real football
in Austin,
field,
yeah, and I think that's
October
why. In fact, our buddy Michael Geddes of Integrated Media said he'll buy me a beer if they do. I expect Georgia to win every game they play. But based on how both teams are playing, I could certainly see Texas being a slight – I wouldn't see any heavy favorite there.
I think what happens in Texas, Michigan early on in the season will determine if they're going to be favorites or not. If they go to Michigan and they squeak out a win,
they're going to win.
And Georgia dominates,
they're going to win.
They should.
But you told me it was only 3.5, right?
Oh, 3.5 points.
Yeah, that surprised me. I might take Texas minus 3.5.
Because at the same time, there's not a lot of teams that have walked into Ann Arbor and been a favorite in the last half decade. And while Michigan's losing so many good players on offense, that defense is stupid loaded still. They did not lose a ton defensively. They still have some absolute studs on that side of the ball who were a vital part of them being really good last year. They just lost, the entire...
the ability to score.
Blake Corum, McCarthy. They lost a quarterback, running back, wide receivers, a lot of offensive linemen. I mean, I think they returned only 2 starters on offense. Yeah, two returning starters coming into this year on offense.
Yeah. Texas is the right. What's who's second? Alabama?
Second is still Alabama, 27.6%, Ole Miss at 22.8%, and then LSU and others at 7.5%.
And Georgia goes to Tuscaloosa?
Georgia this season does have to go to Tuscaloosa on September 28th. So their first 3 games, Clemson in Atlanta, Tennessee Tech, wings up, Eagles at home, September 14th at Kentucky, and then they have the stretch of at Alabama, annual Auburn game at home, Mississippi State at home, should win both of those, and then they go at Texas.
It's not easy, man. Even if they are loaded, and they are loaded. But that ain't easy.
Coldplay had it right.
I'm curious, has anyone given you a 5th or 6th school, or only the 4?
No one has. So I'm assuming all votes for LSU are for LSU.
I don't think it's going to be LSU.
I'm not high on LSU.
I wanted to be higher on LSU.
I can't get talked into it. The more I dig on them, the least or the less surprised. Yeah. I'm not surprised. I guess impressed.
On that note, FanDuel has updated national championship odds.
Ooh, I like.
Georgia is number 1 at plus 300.
No surprise.
And if you don't know what that, just for those of you that don't, plus, a number, it's all based on a $100 bet. So if you bet $100 and Georgia to win the national title, you would win $300. So when you see a minus number, it means you have to bet that number to win the $100. So if somebody was like minus 150, you bet $150 and then you win 100 back.
Yes.
So there you go. Ohio State is second at plus 420.
Ooh.
Oregon is next at plus 800. Texas is 4th at plus 850. Do you know who's fifth? And it's almost double. Not quite, but it's almost double what Texas's number is. Almost double.
Alabama
at 1,500 plus 1,500.
Wow.
It goes way up, man.
Oh, man.
It goes way up. And guess who's tied with Alabama? I'll give you one guess.
The conference.
It's in their conference. Somebody you like a lot.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss is also plus 1,500. When's the last time?
Oh, buddy.
When's the last time?
Oh, buddy.
That Mississippi and Alabama went into the same football season with the same odds to win the same championship?
10 buckaroos?
I'm going to say that, like...
That sounds great.
I'm going to say that, like, Ike or Kennedy were president the last time that may have even potentially been able to happen.
The sport was probably segregated still.
Probably.
Not even trying to be funny. I think that is actually
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Last time.
Yeah, Eisenhower or Kennedy presidencies, yeah. LSU is at 1,700. Penn State plus 2,000. I'm going to go ahead and give you all a tip.
Plus 2,000 Penn State.
Don't bet on Penn State to win the national title. I like Penn State.
I don't love Penn State.
I don't...
I like with Penn State.
By the way, real quick here, as we just talk college football, we talk about seats that are, everybody's seat is warm. It's just, how hot and certain seats are much, much hotter. How warm is James Franklin's seat? Because I feel like they've plateaued, man.
Well, because, they still get really competitive rosters, teams that are honestly built to win this
league.
They
are. No, they're good. They win 10 games. But the thing is, they lose to Michigan and Ohio State.
They can't get over that hump.
Yeah.
And here's my thing, too. The same thing was being said about Harbaugh until it didn't, right? Right after 2020, who was the coach on the hottest seat in college football? It's Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
It was Jim Harbaugh. Because they went 2-4, and the year before that they went 9-4, and they got killed by Ohio State. They got beat at Penn State, and they lost to Wisconsin, who were the contenders of the league. And the whole thing was Jim Harbaugh can't get over that hump. And then all of a sudden, 2021 happens. You win a Big Ten championship. You go to the college football playoff. 2022 happens. You beat Ohio State. You win the Big Ten championship. You go to the playoff. 2023 happens. You win the whole damn thing. I don't think there's a serious risk of canning James Franklin, even if he goes 9-3 this year and he loses to the big boys of the league.
Well, because you and I were talking, and the reason I bring this up, because I was just thinking about as we kind of blend the SEC with other things here too, I asked you, who's going to have the need for a coach next year beyond Florida? And we don't know that Florida will, but we certainly expect Florida to. But I think Lane Kiffin takes that job.
Yeah, Billy's cards are stacked against him.
But could I offer up the potential of Eli Drinkwitz to Penn State?
That's intriguing. We actually did get a text on our text line, our Firehouse Subs text line, where someone goes, hot take here, Eli Drinkwitz will be the head coach at Florida in 2025. So he says Florida.
Huh. Maybe, but I think they go for Lane first. Look, listen, Lane and his family might like Oxford. I don't know.
And maybe they can get a couple donors, because that's the difference between Ole Miss and Florida, right? It'd be a couple donors at Ole Miss forking over a lot of money to get Lane Kiffin to stay, whereas Florida, they can get a lot of different donors and a lot of different resources to get the money to entice Lane Kiffin to leave Oxford.
Take the analogy of the two states. There's Mississippi, which is a fine place, and there's Florida.
That's a fine place. It's also one of the poorest states.
It's just it's
financial resources in Mississippi don't go hand
It's
in
not
hand.
even close. It's just not even close.
They have a couple really rich donors that fuel their NIL, but that's about it.
I want to continue this as part of the drive around the SEC. Be right back.
I'm going to talk about my friends over at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss, and we talk a lot about coaches on this program, a whole lot about coaches and the strength of Columbia Secret for Weight Loss and their system they have to help you reach your weight loss goal. A lot of it is coaching. Yeah, there's some certain dietary things that they help you adjust to change your eating habits for the better, to be able to help other assets of your life. But the coaching that Paul Grant and Shaylin give you at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss, to me, was one of the biggest reasons why I was able to help not just lose the weight, but keep it off and also be able to have a lifestyle that I can maintain and be able to live healthier and happier and have that guidance and that accountability along the way. If you're interested in learning the secret of losing up to 1 pound of unhealthy fat per day and starting your own success story, give them a call. Columbia Secret for Weight Loss right now at 803-824-4210 or ColumbiaSecretForWeightLoss.com. Results may vary. From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you are just one that's still active right now is causing a pretty major traffic backup, and that one's going to be over in Columbia. An accident has the left lane blocked on I-20 westbound after the Monticello Road exit 68, so left lane completely blocked over on 20 West near exit 68. We did have a fire at Richland Fashion Mall. It was on fire, and Forest Drive was blocked on both directions near Beltline Boulevard, but that incident has been cleared, so Forest Drive, both eastbound and westbound near Highway 12, is running more smoothly.
It is Drive Around the SEC time on this Wednesday. Welcome back in to the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Appreciate you being with us. A couple of interesting notes to get to before we kind of go back around, circle back around. We were just talking about Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. Lane's done a heck of a job in Oxford. There's no doubt about that. Can he remain their head coach? Can they keep him? If somebody else really wants to go get him, especially when you look at a school like Florida, more than likely having the need for a new head coach and the kind of guy that Lane is in the portal, and as a really, I think I don't know if he's an offensive genius or not. That may be too strong a word, but some people may look at him that way. But he certainly knows what he's doing.
Gifted play caller.
He has also allowed a guy like Jackson Dart to become a big namer. And Jackson Dart has today announced an endorsement deal with Dick's Sporting Goods. He'll be doing some commercials back to school themed with Kay Adams, formerly of the NFL Network.
Very
not
nice.
Kay Adams from The Godfather.
No, definitely not. Two different Kay Adams.
Does not say here exactly how much it's worth, but according to On3, the total value of the deal is estimated to be around $100,000. In the campaign, Jackson Dart will take fans behind the scenes, sharing his personal gear and apparel choices from Dick's. So there you go.
Very nice. Attaboy.
Is Kay Adams married? I don't want Jackson to be hitting on Kay Adams.
Well, if she is, I know she's not married into the mafia, so a little easier for him to be able to do that if that's
Michael, do you know how naive you sound? Presidents and senators don't have people killed. Now who's being naive, Kay? Such a great line.
Classic film.
Such a great line. Now who's being naive, Kay?
And now you can say that I know what you're talking about.
I know. See, that's great. I'm so excited.
I can pick it up now.
But I also want you to watch those again. And then after you watch them again, you know what I want you to do?
Watch them again.
Yes.
At this point, we're studying.
And
This
then
is a film study session.
The third or fourth time, then you'll be like, oh, yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, good. Oh, yeah.
I do like rewatching.
And then by
a lot
like
of
the
movies.
12th or 15th time, then you will really it'll be part of your life, man.
Because it
You
is.
can thank me later.
Those two movies are 7 hours of your life. They're
Yes.
things that can be missed, especially when you do it. I did and binge it all in a day.
Yes. You know what? I don't know. I'll tell you, I've said this before, but probably not to you. And I don't know where you can find it because you can't stream it. I'm not even sure you can buy it. But it was on A&E like maybe 15 years ago. But back in the late 70s when Francis Ford Coppola needed money for Apocalypse Now,
Also a great film.
he
All-timer.
he made a mini-series of the Godfather movies. But what he did was he recut them, and he called it the Godfather Saga. It was the first two because 3 had not been done. Made a mini-series out of it. But they added in like another like almost hour of stuff that hit the cutting room floor. And so they spliced stuff back in, edited, but it went from like the De Niro to then like all the stuff of the Godfather to then like the Michael and, you know, the Nevada and the DC and the Cuba stuff. Like, so he did it totally chronologically as opposed to how.
Oh, I love that.
And it was great, man.
That's
And
remarkable.
And it was like, it's like 8+ hours, but it was like a week-long miniseries on whatever network. But he did it to raise money for Apocalypse Now because that's how he like, you know, everything had to be on location, whatever else. I know we're doing Drive Around the SEC, but if I get going about The Godfather, I just
That's fascinating.
get all excited about it.
Honestly, now that I've seen both movies all the way through once,
It was
I would like
really-
to see it like that.
Because there were the scenes, because I've read the book, and the book is great, by the way. If you've never read The Godfather by Mario Puzo, it's fantastic, which is why they wanted to make a film out of it in the 1970s. I mean, let's be honest about it. It was like, oh, this is good. let's make a movie.
Kind of inspired it.
It did all right, too. But anyway, if you can ever find The Godfather Saga, and if any of you have it on like VHS, well, actually, I don't have a VHS anymore.
Who does?
I had one for a while.
That's the bigger question.
Now, I had one for a while that was not used, and Mrs. Phillips finally said, what are you going to do with this? Like all the stuff that you ever want on a VHS, you've put onto DVD because we had like some family things and stuff like that, you know, like old family, like, you know, it was really, we just put them onto a DVD. So now I don't
Digitalize it.
have the need for a VHS anymore.
Not anymore, unfortunately.
I miss those days.
I kind of
Sort of.
There's a nostalgia thing to it.
Anyway, we've been talking about media days, previewing, and you know our questions. Just to kind of recap in a very nutshell version with Alabama. For me, it's new era, but same expectations. Elijah, your question basically for Bama was: will the fan base allow an 8-4?
Well, they allow a period of
It's just like a
not
judge.
being a top
I'll
three
allow
teams.
it. Like no, overruled. Yeah, I don't think they will, man. Now, they're not going to fire Kalen DeBoer after an 8-4 this year.
No.
But, buddy, if it ain't working.
The locals.
And that's always the fear. And that's in all seriousness, that's the fear, right? Like, you don't want to be the guy that follows the guy. But then there are even sometimes, like, the guy.
Yeah.
And it's just totally different.
Yeah.
Should they have, and I don't know who, but should you have pulled a North Carolina basketball and just hired, the Alabama football version of Bill Guthridge?
That's the thing about Nick Saban. I don't know if he has one of those.
I don't think he does.
They just churn out assistant coaches.
Or
get jobs.
Go get like Bill Oliver to do it for a year. Or who's our boy that took? Oh man, Kevin Steele.
Oh my God.
Just get Kevin Steele to be Alabama's head coach for a year.
College football coaching journeyman.
And whatever happens, right? If you go 12-0, you're still not going to have a job. And if you go 6-6, you're still not going to have a job. But just give it a chance to breathe. But instead, they went out and got a terrific coach who played for the national. Yeah, sure. There you go.
There you go. Yeah. Bring mediocrity back just for 1 year to see how it feels.
Derek Dooley. I don't know.
You want to go 5-7? That's your guy, buddy.
And let him wear those Tennessee pants on the sideline.
That's right. Give him an equivalent. Give him an Alabama equivalent.
But that's the thing is, taking over for the guy. And this isn't just the guy. This may be like a Dean Smith kind of a thing or a Bob Knight kind of thing. I mean, Nick Saban, you can absolutely 100% make the case. I'm not saying he is, but you can make the case that Nick Saban is the greatest coach in college football history because of when he did what he did and what he did. It's one thing when Bear was doing it, you could have 150 players. Or Newt Rockne at Notre Dame. Or even to some degree, Barry Switzer at Oklahoma. Or somebody like that. And I wouldn't put Switzer in that category, but I'm just saying he won. What did Switzer win? 3 titles? 2 maybe? I don't know.
At least 2.
But, but they were, man, and you get the point. You get the point. So there's that. My question for Florida, why isn't it working?
They seemingly have the roster.
Again, the latest recruiting class, 10th in America. Most of their classes are top 15.
The offense last year was really, really good. They moved the ball at will last year.
For Texas, do you have to double your expectations right away? Do you have to stay as good as you were? You won the Big 12. A lot of their fans will say, oh, we're going to have to win the SEC and win the national championship. And is Sark able to handle all of that pressure? Yeah, I think Texas is really good. I think the team is really good. I don't know if the program is really good. And now the program takes a few knocks, man. I mean, it's a lot harder in the SEC. Doesn't mean they can't get it done. It's just a lot harder.
And you're replacing some really important players position-wise. Doing so with good players. Isaiah Bond was a good receiver at Alabama, but wide receiver wasn't Alabama's strength last year. You're replacing 2 of the best interior defensive linemen, I'd say college football scene in a long time in terms of a duo. Those guys were incredibly productive. You're not going to get the same type of pressure up front.
Yeah.
If you can recreate some of that, if Silas Bolden and Isaiah Bond can be 2 reliable wide receivers as transfers and mesh with Quinn Ewers immediately, I like your chances at playing Georgia and Atlanta.
Yeah, I hear you.
But if you don't.
And again, Mississippi State goes next Wednesday as well. And, Jeff Lebby just has to reset everything and kind of get them back to where they were a couple of years ago when they won 9 games under Mike Leach. That's the drive around the SEC brought to you by Herndon Chevy. Save $20,000 on new Silverados. Together, let's drive. Some really cool basketball news for a local. I'll explain when the postgame show returns. Welcome back in. Got some breaking U.S. soccer news to get to, although I don't think it will surprise many of you. We'll touch on that in just a second. First, want to congratulate Columbia's own, Carolina's own, and Heathwood's own, and everything else, Las Vegas's own these days, A'ja Wilson. She is going to be on the cover of the new NBA 2K25. Congratulations, A'ja Wilson. I believe she becomes the first woman to ever grace the cover of a professional basketball game.
I think so. It's only been a couple of years since they've had the WNBA in the game. So it's been a couple of years they've had him in the game, but I think she is the first player to be on the cover.
That's very cool, man.
That's badass.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
That's very cool. So congratulations to her.
She's
well earned.
Pretty much en route to her third MVP. She's kind of averaging 27, 11, and 3.
It's been neat to see. I make no secret of my I love the Dan Patrick Show, and I watch it a lot. And obviously, Caitlin Clark has dominated a lot of the headlines. And Dan has been making the point this year. He's not dissing Caitlin or anything. Of Angel Reese, he says, like, look, Angel Reese is good, but she's not doing things that other women haven't done. Like Caitlin Clark kind of is in some way. But he said, you want to watch a basketball player? You want to see somebody who is just better than you and dominates games and seems to do it effortlessly? He says, go watch A'ja Wilson play basketball. And he says it a lot.
She's the best player in the world.
He does. That's what he says, too. He says, she is the best player in the world. And she is.
Without a doubt.
It's really cool, man. Columbia has produced some terrific basketball players. Obviously, the great Alex English is in the Hall of Fame. But I don't know, that around here we've had somebody who's ever been considered the best player on the planet.
No, absolutely not.
And she's in a position where she's probably going to remain the best player on the planet for at least the next 3 or 4 years.
Oh, she's definitely in her prime. Younger than me.
She's already the face of U.S. basketball. As they go try to win a gold medal. There's every reason to believe she'll be on the next Olympic team when they play in Los Angeles in 4 years. But for those of you like me who do, hear Dan say that, it's cool because Dan, he never says like, oh, that Gamecock or that girl from South Carolina or that girl from Columbia or that girl that played for Heathwood. And it does hurt me to say she played for Heathwood as a Hammond guy, but that's another story altogether. I kid.
Rivalry.
I kid because I care. And really, Hammond and Heathwood both have another rival in town now, and that's all I'll say about that. And it's not Cardinal Newman, and you know who you are. But it's cool, man. She's earned it. She's earned that moniker and an opportunity to be on the cover of the game.
And just having another.
Do you play the NBA 2K series?
I used to play every year until about 2016, until I no longer.
And then the game beat you.
Oh, the game never beat me, my friend.
Okay.
No, I bet I could still pick up this year's version without learning any of the other gameplay stuff and still kick a lot of tail.
There you go. Well,
so like 2K15.
You should go buy Asia's now and see what you can do.
That's right. But 2K15, 16, unstoppable. My prime.
Doug McIntyre, one of the best soccer journalists in the United States, works for Fox Sports, is reporting today that Greg Berhalter will no longer be the team's head coach. That's the United States men's national team. Good. I hate to say that.
The hell took you so long?
Well, it took him a week, ish.
That should have happened that night.
Well, that's what you said to me when I texted you. You were like, "Don't let him, don't let him get on the plane or whatever." Well, I forget what you said, but it's something.
Don't let him leave
effect.
Arrowhead as the head coach.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But I knew it would take a little bit. I hope they can go get somebody, man. And when I say, they'll, look, people will line up to take this job. I want them to exhaust every avenue in attempting to get Jurgen Klopp. And for those of you who don't know who Jurgen Klopp is. He might not be the college football equivalent of Nick Saban, but, I don't know.
Dabo?
Yeah, maybe.
In terms of success?
In terms of success, probably maybe even a little better. He took Dortmund when he was in Germany to the Champions League final. They lost to Bayern Munich. He won everything you can win when he was at Liverpool. Champions League, Premier League, FA Cup.
If Kalen DeBoer wins a title at Alabama, he's Kalen DeBoer.
Man, yeah, I don't know. He's terrific, man. Yeah, but he makes $20 million a year.
Make it happen.
But, again, GoFundMe works.
And you could get some crowds.
You could, man. You could. Fans would line up to do that.
After the splatter show that happened last week, yeah.
Greg Berhalter, though, out as U.S. soccer coach. That's it for us. Thanks again to Jack Veltri for joining us. More SEC Media Days previews and a lot of other fun on tomorrow's program. We will see you then.